In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Well, today's Gospel reading comes to us a bit like a traditional Sunday lunch. Either a starter and then the main course, or a main course followed by a sherry trifle. Today's Gospel has two distinct parts. Firstly, Jesus tells the parable of the sower to the crowd that's gathered around him. And secondly, he explains its meaning to his friends, the disciples. Just as a sower scattering the seeds, the tough task of spreading seeds of good news will sometimes be difficult, overwhelming, and at times disappointing. At times, I'm sure, it feels like we're not getting very far at all, and all our efforts seem to fall on the poor soil. However, with patience, with perseverance, and attentiveness to the task, there's also those times of great success and joy. The story that Jesus told was a story that would resonate with most of the people who were listening. People who would have known all about the unpredictability in the methods of crop cultivation at that time. Much of the land being dry and parched, with little chance of anything germinating, yet there must have been a few areas where any crop would grow. The challenge of Jesus' message is whether those who hear the parable would really listen and understand it fully in their hearts. Now we're told of 4 types of ground into which the sower scatters the seed, and the seed being Jesus' message. Now a staggering 3/4 of it fails to take root successfully. And the pessimist amongst us would tell us that this means 3/4 of the seed is wasted. The message of the good news being rejected by a large proportion of the population was such a reality that Jesus was up against even in his own time. But it's interesting in this particular story that it's sandwiched between 2 accounts of Jesus being ignored and rejected. So even for Jesus, God's message sometimes falls onto unpromising ground. But if the sower perseveres and perseveres, as in the parable, some seed will always land in the right place at the right time. Under the right conditions, it will successfully put down those deep roots with all the effort being worthwhile. Now there's a story of a church that was celebrating its 150th anniversary of its consecration. And a special service was being planned, and they asked the bishop if he would come and preach, and he was delighted to do so. Preparations had been going on for some time. As that day drew near, he felt that he had prepared a sermon which included just the right combination of anecdotes, symbolism, and theology to acknowledge, challenge, and inspire the congregation at the church. Now, the day of the service arrived, and the church was, as expected, full with people. There was a real sense of celebration, of joy, and everyone seemed to enjoy what the bishop had to say. But after the service, the bishop moved around the people before speaking to everyone at the door as they left. But 2 people, in particular, stuck in his mind. First was a lady who came to church every Sunday and sat faithfully in the same seat. For some reason, we like to do this, don't we? As the bishop approached, the lady said, "Father, throughout your sermon, I was trying to work it out. There was something I just couldn't grasp, but then it came to me. And the bishop was filled with joy and expectation that the lady had clearly been so moved by his sermon. There was something that appeared to speak to her in a very deep way, until she said, "There's something different about you. You've got new glasses, haven't you?" The bishop's heart sank. But then the bishop talked to somebody else who said to him, "Bishop, I stopped coming to this church, and I came to think that church and faith wasn't for me. But tonight I thought I would come because that's all everybody has been talking about for weeks. What you said tonight really spoke to me. I think, if I'm honest, I never really listened before. But now I feel that my heart is telling me to give it another go, to put some roots down here in this special and sacred place and try again." Jesus' message and teaching remains a challenge for us today. Reflecting upon these sacred and holy words should always be a way of encouragement and cultivation of searching our souls. But it must always have a greater potential. As God's faithful people, we are called not only to be custodians of our faith, but also to be faithful sowers of the good news in and throughout our daily lives. And as sowers, we must never give up on the ground, just because we think it's only a bit rough, it's full of stones, or it's poor soil. Each one of us in our daily lives are called to be sowers of the seed, by our words, by our actions, and in developing good, healthy relationships with one another. Fertile soil can be found anywhere, even in the most unlikely of places. As Jesus said, the seeds sown in the good soil stand for those who have heard the message and have understood it. They are the ones who bear fruit. The important fact in this gospel story is that the sower never gives up. But the reality is that we never know when the soil is just right. Therefore, we must never give up. Some, if not most of the seed, will always fall on the poor ground, but the sower keeps on sowing. I'm really looking forward to basing much of my future ministry here with you at Holy Trinity, sowing together the seeds of the gospel. However, I know that this will come with challenges, with difficulties and obstacles, which together we will overcome. It will take time for us to get to know one another again. It's been some years since I was here as an ordinand, back, can you believe it, in 2009. And all those years before as your community police officer. I had a bit more hair then, and it was a few shades darker. Plus, my eyes worked a bit better than they do now, which is the main reason for Emma, Tom and I moving into the vicarage here. Some of you will know about my eye problems and the loss of sight in my left eye. And I've had to make various adjustments due to a rare condition which is baffling even the experts at Moorfields Eye Hospital in London. You will come to notice that I may do things a little bit differently, and I promise I'll try my best not to bump into anyone or knock them over. Friends, it's an immense privilege to have been invited to follow in the footsteps of Father Stephen, to join with you as we serve the communities of Ystrad Mynach and Llanbradach, as well as the whole of the ministry area. But back to the Sunday lunch and the trifle. The Sunday lunch has two distinct parts and courses. So there are two distinct courses of news. So please remember the people of Treharris and Nelson and us as a family as we prepare to join you. But also there is good news for those who choose to hear it. And secondly, for us, God is the one that always prepares the ground. All we need to do is continue to sow the seed and have trust that God will do the rest. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.